Alright guys, welcome to the second video of the Wyckoff section of the course. And so like I said in the previous video, this video is dedicated to the three laws. And so there isn't really much to go over until we get to the third one. But so law number one, law of supply and demand, determines price action. And yes, that is true depending on interpretation. So how we should interpret it is depending on where in price you are, right? SCs or inefficiencies should be seen as supply or demand. What do I mean by that? Well, let me show you. So here in this EUR/USD chart, right, we see our sponsor candle formed, right? We push up and take out previous liquidity, right, to then go in the opposite direction. So this sponsored candle is now considered supply, right? What does price do when it comes back to supply? And it changes direction, right? And this also follows many other rules. Like I said, the momentum rule, right? Look at how fast the downside move was. Look at how long it took for price to come back up, etc., and then vice versa as well. This SC cleared out previous liquidity, probably mitigated something under here, and then when price came back to it, this is now considered demand, right? So yeah, rule number one is very self-explanatory. Just understand what supply means and what demand means, right? And if it makes it simpler, just demand buys, supply sells, unless I'm extremely stupid and I got that backwards. But yeah, there's really nothing much about rule number one. Rule number two, the law of cause and effect, that's also very self-explanatory in the case that when you're understanding schematic and you're understanding direction, right? If accumulation happens, right, the conversion of supply to demand, that is basically the cause of that is the accumulation schematic and the volume shifts, and the effect of that is upside movement, right? And then it's vice versa for distribution, right? Demand turns to supply through the same conversion, which is obviously the schematic and the volume shift. And then when it comes to reaccumulation, redistribution, that's just basic. Reaccumulation will basically be what causes it is, demand continues to overpower supply, and that's why price continues to go higher, and vice versa for redistribution, right? So everything has, an effect. Every action has an effect, right? All that stuff. It's very basic, right? And now this is probably the most important part of this entire section, in my opinion, because this one law can cause a straight up paradigm shift on anybody. The law of effort. And this is, right, the divergences between volume and price. And what did we discuss in Advanced 2? That was all about volume and understanding momentum, how to correlate them, how to help you with entry. So when we dive into schematics, when we dive into applying Wyckoff logic, it's all revolved around volume in comparison to price momentum, to then price structure, etc. So you see how it all starts to fit in. And so what you got to understand in the law of effort is, like it says here, when there are several high volume but narrow range price bars after a substantial rally, with the price failing to make a new high, this suggests that big interests are unloading shares of anticipation of a change of trend, right? That shows exhaustion, right? That's what I've been trying to tell you guys with, if you see volume on supporting price, then that creates unsustainability, which then leads to a change of trend. So that's literally what I want you to get out of this video is read up on this, understand this, interpret it, apply it, right? This is arguably honestly, probably the best thing on this course, in my opinion, because it opened my eyes to understanding what logic meant and applying logic, not just looking to copy a schematic onto, the chart. Because every schematic varies differently, whether it's a different schematic itself, whether it's a different variation of the schematic, whether there's different points inside the schematic that are different. It all varies, but that's why we pay attention to logic, and logic is what's going to get you through all this. All right, so yeah, guys, read up on this, understand it, interpret it, apply it. Remember that. So yeah, guys, next we're going to start getting into the schematics, what they mean, how they work, and how they look like. So yeah.